First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Racha Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of John, the 11th chapter. Now, a certain man was sick, named Lazarus, of Bethany, the town of Mary and her sister Martha. It was that Mary which anointed the Lord with ointment and wiped his feet with her hair, whose brother Lazarus was sick. Therefore his sisters sent unto him, saying, Lord, behold, he whom thou lovest is sick, referring to Lazarus. When Yahushua heard that, he said, This sickness is not unto death, but for the glory of God, that the Son of God might be glorified thereby. So Lazarus falling sick was likened unto that blind man who was born blind. And it wasn't that here Lazarus was he did die, but the Lord is saying here he wasn't made sick for his destruction, as in like he's being, this is his judgment for something he has done, but for the Lord to be able to perform this miracle of resurrecting him, which would bring glory to the Most High through the glorification, as it says, that the Son of God might be glorified thereby, by performing that miracle. Now Yahushua loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. When he had heard, therefore, that he was sick, he abode 2 days still in the place where he was. So he wasn't where they were. And when he found out that they were sick, he still stayed where he was for a bit longer because he had to let Lazarus actually die so he can come and perform that miracle. Then after that, saith he to his disciples, Let us go into Judea again. His disciples say unto him, Master, the Jews of late sought to stone thee, and thou goest thither again? They just try to kill you. You're going to go back there again? Yahushua answered, Are there not 12 hours in the day? If any man walk in the day, he stumbleth not, because he seeth the light of the world, or of this world. But if a man walk in the night, he stumbleth, because there is no light in him. And, on the physical level, on the carnal level, right? Generally speaking, yes, you have the light in the daytime that provides you light so you can see where you're going and you don't stumble, you don't fall, as opposed to the nighttime where it's dark and you may not have light and it makes it harder to go, right, as you stumble at things. But on a spiritual sense, what the Lord is saying here is likening those that believe on him, that would take heed to his words, right, and do them, to those that walk in the day, right? It's likened to walking in the day, considering that Yahushua is the light of the world. But those that rejected or would not keep his ways are like those that walk in the night, and they stumble on in sin and iniquity. All right. These things he said, or said he, and after that he saith unto them, Our friend Lazarus sleepeth, but I go that I may awake him out of sleep. Then said his disciples, Lord, if he sleep, he shall do well. Because they thought he meant Lazarus was like asleep, not realizing that he was speaking of Lazarus's death. Because the scriptures oftentimes also refer to somebody who goes back to the spirit world as sleeping, right? He slept with his fathers, meaning he died. And also going to show, right, as Yahushua mentioned about, in the Gospels, when the Sadducees asked him about the resurrection, right, he mentioned about the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So technically, like, even with that notion of sleep, to the Lord, that's what it is, right? When Abraham died, really to the Lord, he was just asleep, or to the world, he was just asleep, because he, in the eyes of the Lord, he still lives. He's just either on the earth or in the spirit world. All right. But anyway, coming back to John, the 11th chapter, it says here, So they're like, well, if he's sleeping, then he's going to do well, because then, his body can recover. And howbeit Yahushua spake of his death, but they thought that he had spoken of taking rest in sleep. Then saith Yahushua unto them plainly, Lazarus is dead. Clearly, you weren't getting what I was saying. And I am glad for your sakes that I was not there. So he's saying I'm glad that I wasn't where he was, so that, as it says, to the intent ye may believe, nevertheless let us go on to him. See, so it's not that they didn't believe before, but this would strengthen and confirm further their belief in him, and him being sent of his Father, and him being the Messiah. So he's saying, I'm glad I wasn't there, because that gave way for this opportunity. Because then he was sick and I could have just healed him. But for this miracle to be performed, he needed to die. So I'm glad I wasn't there. That way he could, pass, and then I can go and perform an even greater miracle for your sakes. Then said Thomas, which is called Didymus. And when you go into that name, Didymus, one of the definitions says like a twin, right? It says twofold or twain, surname of the Apostle Thomas. When you look at the Strong's definition, it says here double, i.e. twin. So if you look at this verse in another translation, you'll notice that it will say, like in the NLT, it'll say here, Thomas, nicknamed the twin, said to his fellow disciples, let's go to and die with Yahushua. Now, why he was called Didymus or twin? Did he actually have a twin? Did he look like somebody else? We don't know. But, just going into the meaning of that name there. So Thomas says to the rest of the disciples, right, let us also go, that we may die with him. Being that, if we go into Judea and they they end up trying to kill the Lord, at least, we'll be with him as his disciples. Then when Yahushua came, he found that he had lain in the grave 4 days already. That is, Lazarus had been dead for at least 4 days. Now Bethany was nigh unto Jerusalem, about 15 furlongs off. And many of the Jews came to Martha and Mary to comfort them concerning their brother. Then Martha, as soon as she heard that Yahushua was coming, so before he even got there, as he was still making his way there, went and met him, but Mary sat still in the house. Then said Martha unto Yahushua, Lord, if thou hadst been here, my brother had not died. But I know that even now, whatsoever thou wilt ask of God, God will give it thee. So she's saying, if only you were here, like you could have healed him and he wouldn't have had to have died. But it's okay, because, basically if you will it, he can be good again, because whatever, like we know that whatever you ask of God, he'll give thee. So nothing is impossible for you. Yahushua saith unto her, thy brother shall rise again. Martha saith unto him, I know that he shall rise again in the resurrection at the last day. See, so they understood that there would come a time, as it is written in scriptures, John the 5th chapter, Revelation 20, and Daniel 12, right? But they understood that even in the book of 2nd Maccabees, they understood that there would be a day in which, people would be raised up from the dead and judged. And I'm going to read this same verse in the NLT as well. It says here, NLT, yes, Martha said, he will rise when everyone else rises at the last day to receive their judgment. Yahushua saith unto her, I am the resurrection and the life. Yahushua, when he said this, wasn't referring to the last day. He was referring to how he was going to raise up Lazarus from the dead. But she didn't, that went over her head as well. So he tells her, I'm the resurrection, right? The resurrection you're talking about, it's by me. Okay, the Father has entrusted me in that power. So it is by me that people are brought back to life. And guess what? When Yahushua tells you that in the book of Matthew, when Yahushua was crucified, he died and was risen, you had people that came out of the graves and went into the city. Okay, like to live, people that had already died. So he says here, I am the resurrection and the life. He that believeth on me, though he were dead, yet shall he live. Right? So if you believe on the Lord, the Lord can make you whole. He can, give you that life. Not only bring you back to life or give you life, but also life eternal. And whosoever liveth and believeth in me shall never die. Believest thou this? Because, like I just mentioned, they would ultimately gain eternal life, but understand that just as Yahweh Shai, what he did at that time when he was on the earth, gained him all the things that he's going to get. It's entrusted into him, but he hasn't physically acquired that yet, right? Because he hasn't come back on the earth yet. So there are certain things like glory and so on that he has gained, but the sitting on the throne and all of that comes when he comes back this time. So likewise, those back then who acquired eternal life through believing on Yahushai didn't get to reap of it just yet, because the harvest is not yet. Okay, and in that sense, I'm referring to the time of the reaping the fruits of your reward. So they acquired it, but the payout comes when Yahushai comes. So yes, they might. It's interesting because you had people back there that acquired or gained eternal life through believing on Yahushai, but yet they died. But guess what? Those spirits coming back in the reincarnation haven't already gained that automatically. If they're of the elect, which they would have to be, they would do the things in this time. They will follow the Lord in this time to be able to acquire, right, or redeem that reward that they had gained. And really, it ultimately goes back to the predestination, right? The Most High had already set it up from the foundation of the world, who was going to gain it and who wasn't. But as the Lord said, whosoever liveth and believeth in me shall never die, right? Believest thou this? So, meaning they would gain that eternal life. She saith unto him, Yea, Lord, I believe that thou art the anointed, the Son of God, which should come into the world. And when she had so said, she went her way and called Mary her sister secretly, saying, The Master is come and calleth for thee. Because remember, Mary was back home. As soon as she heard that, she arose quickly and came unto him. And Yahushua was not yet come into the town, but was in that place where Martha met him. Because Martha went ahead when she heard he was on the way and met him before he even made it into the town. So she goes and calls her sister Mary. Mary with haste goes out to go and meet Yahushua. Verse 31, now the Jews then, which were with her, Mary, in the house, and comforted her, when they saw Mary, that she rose up hastily and went out, followed her, saying, She goeth unto the grave to weep there. So they came to basically console her, to comfort her. And then they see her suddenly get up with haste and leave, and they're thinking, oh, she's probably going to go cry some more. Then when Mary was come, or where Yahushua was, and saw him, she fell down at his feet, saying unto him, Lord, if thou hadst been here, my brother had not died. When Yahushua therefore saw her weeping, and the Jews also weeping, which came with her, he groaned in the spirit, and was troubled, and said, Where have ye laid him? So where is he buried? They said unto him, Lord, come and see. Yahushua wept. And to weep is like, we know what it means, but matter of fact, let me look it up here. I want to see how they define it here. To weep. It's not just like your regular crying, but it says to shed tears, to sob, and usually a fit or period of weeping. Usually when somebody weeps, it's more than just getting teary-eyed, okay? It's usually when they're very sad. So Yahushua wept. And, you might say, but he knew he was going to be able to raise him up, so why did he weep? But the 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 realization, right? Like seeing it and seeing how it has affected others and so on, it can still make you feel sad. Like today, you may lose a loved one, but you know and understand that you're going to see them again. You understand how the scriptures work and how prophecy works, but you still mourn. It's still sad, right? It still feels like a loss. Verse 36. Then said the Jews, behold, how he loved him, when they saw Yahushua weeping. And some of them said, could not this man, which opened the eyes of the blind, have caused that even this man should not have died? But, of course he could have. But that would have defeated the purpose of what he had to do concerning Lazarus. Yahushua therefore again, groaning in himself, cometh to the grave. It was a cave, and a stone lay upon it. Meaning, like, if you look up a sepulcher, right, that's usually how it was. They would, the entrance would be, the door of the entrance would be closed via a stone. Like that's rolled. So let's go here. Sepulcher, Bible, times. All right, so once again, something similar to this. And they would roll that stone across, right, to close it or to open it. Where we at? Verse 39. Yahushua said, take ye away the stone, move the stone. Martha, the sister of him that was dead, saith unto him, Lord, by this time he stinketh, for he hath been dead 4 days. Meaning by this time his body's already rotten or rotting, and it's, it's been 4 days already. Yahushua saith unto her, said I not unto thee, that if thou wouldest believe, thou shouldest see the glory of God? Then they took away the stone from the place where the dead was laid. And Yahushua lifted up his eyes and said, Father, I thank thee that thou hast heard me. And I knew that thou hearest me always. But because of the people which stand by, I said it. So he explicitly gave thanks to the Lord for hearing him. And he's saying, like, I know that you hear me all the time, but I still had to say it so that those that are around me can bear witness. That it may say it, that they may believe that thou hast sent me. And when he thus had spoken, he cried with a loud voice, Lazarus, come forth. And it almost sounded like he was calling his spirit from the spirit world back down, because that's what happens when you die. Your spirit goes back to the spirit world. So nevertheless, Lazarus, now at this point, remember his body, at this point likely rotting and everything. But your body is a composition of elements anyway that are formed to make your skin and your organs and all of those. So it's not a difficult thing for the Lord to command the physical elements that form your actual body, right? And in whatever composition they were put in, to just come back again, right? And renew or rejuvenate the body and have the spirit come right back into it. And he that was dead came forth, bound hand and foot with grave clothes. So that those bandages and like wraps they had around him, he was still in that, but he basically came out, and his face was bound with a napkin. Yahushua saith unto them, loose him and let him go. So at this point, he basically brought him back from the dead. Then many of the Jews which came to Mary and had seen the things which Yahushua did believed on him. They said, yeah, no, that he's definitely got to be the Messiah. We know Lazarus was dead. He was dead for some days. And this man just called him out. And now he's alive. Like, nah, nobody else can do this but the Messiah. This has to be the Messiah. But some of them went their ways to the Pharisees and told them what things Yahushua had done. Then gathered the chief priests and the Pharisees a council and said, what do we? For this man doeth many miracles. What are we gonna do? We got to do something about this. This guy's the miracles he's performing. He's doing a lot, and people are getting swayed by it. If we let him thus alone, all men will believe on him, and the Romans shall come and take away both our place and nation. Because they're saying here, look, right now we are in a certain position authorized by the Romans, right? We're a Roman province. So there are certain things that they got to do, by the authority of the Romans. And there are certain lanes you got to stay in. And they're saying here, look, the more people start to believe on him, the more that attention is going to come on here. And eventually they're gonna in their minds, like, uprise against the Romans. Like, we got our king now, the Messiah is here. And that's going to have the Pharisees, as it says, lose both their place, their position that they were given, and the nation. Okay, because should the Romans sense Yahushua as a threat, they would come there, and the Pharisees here feared that they would destroy the nation for that. And one of them, named Caiaphas, being the high priest that same year, said unto them, Ye know nothing at all, nor consider that it is expedient for us that one man should die for the people, and that the whole nation perish not. This spake he not of himself, but being high priest that year, he prophesied that Yahushua should die for that nation. So he was prophesying that Yahushua would have to die for the nation of Israel. This went over their heads, and as it says, they took it as, well, we'll read it when we get there. And not for that nation only, but that also he should gather together in one the children of God that were scattered abroad. That's where you get your whole mystery of the Gentiles from. Those children of God are Israelites that were scattered abroad. And through the preaching of Yahushua, they would be gathered. Then from that day forth, they took counsel together to put him to death. See, so you can imagine some of these Pharisees thinking, I see. So the solution here is we have to eliminate this guy for the sake of the nation. Yahushua therefore walked no more openly among the Jews, but went thence unto a country near to the wilderness, into a city called Ephraim, and there continued with his disciples. And the Jews' Passover was nigh at hand, and many went out of the country up to Jerusalem before the Passover to purify themselves. Right, because they wanted to, be made sure or be made clean, right? Before, if there was anything that had made them unclean, or, before keeping the Passover. Then sought they for Yahushua, and spake among themselves as they stood in the temple, What think ye, that he will not come to the feast? I mean, he's supposed to be the Messiah, right? I mean, was he not going to show up? This is you have to show up. This is a holy day. Now both the chief priests and the Pharisees had given a commandment that if any man knew where he were, he should shew it, that they might take him. So they gave an order out, like a wanted, almost like a wanted poster to say, whoever knows the whereabouts of this Yahushua, you better come clean with it. And that brings us to the end of the book of John, the 11th chapter. Lord willing, that was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Rachak, Wadash. Until next time, Shalom.